Yes, that was the bed-in of John Lennon and Yoko Ono in Montreal in 1969. It was at Montreal's Queen Elizabeth Hotel. I just recently visited there. Well, that is where President George W. Bush is scheduled to speak tomorrow, and thousands are expected to protest outside. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Anjali Kamat. Anjali?
Israel has hardened its opposition to international calls for an independent inquiry into its war on the Gaza Strip last winter. Defense Minister Ehud Barak on Tuesday prevented a planned debate by the Israeli cabinet on whether to launch an internal probe of the war. Instead, ministers created a lobbying team to fight a United Nations report which accuses the Israeli army of war crimes and deliberately targeting civilians in Gaza. The report by South African jurist Richard Goldstone, which was endorsed by the Human Rights Council last week, also accuses Hamas of indiscriminate rocket fire. It recommends that the UN Security Council possibly take the issue to the International Criminal Court if both sides fail to conduct credible domestic investigations within 6 months. At an international conference in Jerusalem Tuesday, Israeli President Shimon Peres reiterated that terrorism was the biggest war crime.
Peoples that were not hit by car bombs and missiles that were launched at their civilian population are not aware to the damage caused by terror, to its price, and to the complexity that it creates. Preventing terrorism is saying yes to good neighbor relations. The war of terrorism is the biggest war crime which exists.
Well, we turn now to one of Israel's most powerful voices of dissent, journalist and author Amira Hass. She's a regular columnist with Israels Haaretz newspaper and is the only Israeli journalist to have spent several years living in and reporting from Gaza and the West Bank. She's the author of Drinking the Sea at Gaza, Days and Nights in a Land Under Siege, Reporting from Ramallah, an Israeli journalist in an occupied land, and Diary of Bergen-Belsen, 1944 to 1945. Amira Hass was awarded the 2009 Lifetime Achievement Award from the International Women's Media Foundation at a ceremony in New York Tuesday. We'll go to her acceptance speech in a moment, but first, here is CNN's Christiane Amanpour introducing Amira Hass, whom she described as, quote, one of the greatest truth seekers of them all.
Amira monitors power by following the lives of average people caught in its machinations, and she's on the ground listening and collecting their testimonies. And as I said, she's often providing the material for those of us who don't know the story as well, or who sometimes are not able to go where she goes, to be able to follow her leads. She writes what the Palestinian journalists think about their country's leadership, but dare not say themselves. She writes what she thinks citizens of Israel should know about their leadership, but do not want to hear. Some call her a traitor. It is uncomfortable to hear the truth. It's very uncomfortable to tell the truth. Some say that she is the only voice of truth in a polarized conflict. For 20 years, she's paid no attention to either of these camps, choosing instead to follow her own path. Amira knows what Irina just said, that dictators do not like journalists, but more than that, democracies often don't like journalists either.
CNN's Christiane Amanpour introducing Israeli journalist Amira Hass, who received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the International Women's Media Foundation. This is the acceptance speech that Amira Hass gave right after.
Shalom, marhaba. Allow me to start with a correction. How impolite you'd rightly think. But anyway, we Israelis are being forgiven for much worse than impoliteness. What is so generously termed today by the International Women's Media Foundation as my lifetime achievement needs to be corrected, because it is failure. Nothing more than a failure, a lifetime failure. Come to think of it, the lifetime part is just as questionable. After all, it is about a third of my life, not more, that I have been engaged in journalism. Also, if the lifetime part gives you the impression that I'm soon going to retire, then this impression has to be corrected as well. I'm not planning to end soon what I'm doing. What am I doing? I'm generally defined as a reporter on Palestinian issues, but in fact, my reports are about the Israeli society and policies, about domination and its intoxications. My sources are not secret documents and leaked out minutes which were taken out of meetings of people with power and in power. My sources are the open ways by which the subjugated are being dispossessed of their equal rights as human beings. There is still much more to learn about Israel, to learn about my society and about the Israeli decision makers who invent restrictions such as Gazan students are not to study in a Palestinian university in the West Bank, some 70 kilometers away from their home. Another ban, children above the age of 18 are not to visit their Palestinian parents in Gaza if the parents are well and healthy. If the parents are dying, Israeli order-abiding officials would have allowed the visit. If the children are younger than 18, the visit would have been allowed as well. But on the other hand, second-degree relatives are not allowed to visit dying or healthy siblings in Gaza. It is an intriguing philosophical question, not only journalistic. Think of it. What for the Israeli system is so disturbing about reasonably healthy fathers or mothers? What is so disturbing about a kid choosing and getting a better education? And these are but two in a long, long list of Israeli prohibitions. Also, when I write about the progressively decimated and fragmented Palestinian territory of the West Bank, it's not just about people losing their family property and livelihood that I write. It's not only about the shrinking opportunities of people in disconnected, crowded enclaves. It is in fact a story about the skills of Israeli architects. It is a way to learn about how Israeli on-the-ground planning contradicts official proclamations, a phenomenon which characterizes the acts of all Israeli governments in the past as in the present. In short, there is so much to keep me busy for another lifetime, or at least for the rest of my lifetime. But as I said, the real correction is elsewhere. It's not about achievement that we should be talking here, but about a failure. It is the failure to make the Israeli and international public use and accept correct terms and words which reflect the reality. Not the Orwellian new speech that has flourished since 1993 and has been cleverly dictated and disseminated by those with invested interests. The peace process terminology, which took reign, blurs the perception of real processes that are going on. A special Israeli blend of military occupation, colonialism, apartheid, Palestinian limited self-rule in enclaves, and a democracy for Jews. It is not my role as a journalist to make my fellow Israelis and Jews agree that these processes are immoral and dangerously unwise for all of us. It is my role, though, to exercise the right for freedom of the press in order to supply information and to make people know. But, as I've painfully discovered over the years, the right to know does not mean a duty to know. Thousands of my articles and zillions of words have evaporated. They could not compete with the official language that has been happily adopted by the mass media and is used in order to disportray the reality. Official language that encourages people not to know. Indeed, a remarkable failure for a journalist.
Israeli journalist Amira Hass speaking on Tuesday after receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award from the International Women's Media Foundation. Amira Hass joins us here in our Firehouse studio in New York. Welcome to Democracy Now! Again, Amira, and congratulations on your award.
Thanks.
What do you think is most important for people to understand right now about Israel, about Gaza, about the West Bank, where you live?
That we're not talking about symmetric powers here, Israelis versus Palestinians, or Israeli state versus a Palestinian state. We're talking about a regime of occupation that uses all methods in order to force on Palestinians an arrangement of surrender, which is far away from internationally accepted, or at least in the past, or at least proclaimed, internationally proclaimed solutions for the conflict, which is two-state solution based on the 67 borders. And this is Israel has been doing for